Okay, I'm going to talk about the introduction. This text basically discusses the interest in the theory and the practice of autonomy, focusing on the works published since the beginning of 20th century. Also, this text covers relevant developments in the philosophy of autonomy and the role of it in the global educational policy and the reform. But focusing on the recent literature of this topic, we can see an emergence of new orientations in the research. On the other hand, and the most important is we will talk about the conceptions of autonomy with our system and the ways in which new conception of autonomy fit in the evolution of language teaching, taking account the learning theory education and educational practice and social thinking.
The individual in modern society. The idea of learning autonomy is related to European conceptions of a democratic society founded on the exercise of individual autonomy and respect for the autonomy of others. Viewed as an educational goal, learning autonomy implies a particular kind of socialization involving the development of attributes that will permit individuals to play active roles in a democratic society. This means that we should be less concerned with historical conceptions of autonomy than with ways in which they are currently being appropriated and reinterpreted in contemporary philosophical and social debates. Ideal learning environments in terms of fostering autonomy may comprise space for the individual development of learners, a functionality mentoring system, a rich supply of pedagogic resources and materials, a technical support system, the existence of respectful role models, the provision of meaningful tasks, the creation of relevant learning scenarios, and the integration into some for organizing learning.
The individual in modern society also rejects in the association of autonomy with conceptions of the autonomous individual, arguing that autonomy is necessarily restricted in modern societies. At best, there is autonomy for people whose personal development is determined by many contingencies. Gergen also argued that in the face of the fragmentation of substantive identities, self-determined intentions, decisions, and actions presuppose knowledge of who he is and who he wants to be. The writer wants to draw attention to the fact that simply the interest in autonomy in language teaching of comes from nature and role of autonomy in a postmodern world. In this context, new philosophical ideas, conceptions of autonomy are also emerging with the potential to infer the development of autonomy as a language learning concept. There are links, for example, between the feminist notion of relational autonomy and approaches to autonomy in learning languages that emphasize interdependence above independence. The foundation of individual autonomy also has moved forward in the development of autonomy through long experiences of language learning.
Okay, we continue with this part that is called education policy and reform. So I can be seen that it's more focused than anything on interest in education from different points of view, such as philosophy and sociology, but it based on the literature. So seeing this as a truly natural phenomenon and social, that it gives to understand that it's a search how to originate the basis of learning and everything that it's file of that it's composite. Okay, to the other hand, there is talk about the autonomy of the students, that it's is their criterion when learning and when taking the initiative to understand and encourage themselves to learn. Yes. Okay. Speaking more in terms of autonomy in education, we know and we've seen several advances that have seen science to be forged with several ideas and implements to able to advance the educational projects in terms of the language, so, because this is science is based from the literature. And finally, I know that my personal point of view, that is, the autonomy has also helped the human being um, from to help, yes, because this take the education more seriously, I think, and be their own hand. Yes. In one part of the document, I remember that talk about the economy and the quality. And okay, I think that it's improved through the years, but it's also a part of the autonomy, that a person has the initiative or to have a study with their own resources and enriched by the knowledge and themselves at work.
Okay, I will continue with the topic, and the language learning autonomy was globalized by conference and publications, and in the 19th had a problem because in the first schools of autonomy was a house, and there had a lot of students and now a small house. So the people um, most to expand the space and the areas for a could share the autonomy learning. So that's it. The name of that schools was independent study houses, and there was the story of the autonomous learning. And thanks to these experiments, we know that autonomy is candidate by need and deserve, and that's it.
Like a conclusion, the autonomy in language learning is an important factor since it changes the perspective on how education is impaired based on a social process that induces learning from the will and discipline. Um, Therefore, the literature has trained this in different contrasts than gains from its support to being against it in order to say that autonomy um, learning is necessary to us and the rest of the people in this generation. Thanks to your attention, and I see you in another opportunity.